you have a treatment center who brings on someone who comes in saying they have a book of business, and I don't necessarily mean an experienced rep. I mean someone who completely puts their entire worth in organization based off the relationships they have, claim a lot of opportunity early on, sometimes hitting, sometimes not. And so the article essentially was to discuss whether or not this person's right for you. We know in our space that there's a lot of turnover, often given the outreach position. I think it's not too uncommon to see someone's resume come across my desk that's unfortunately had the misfortune of being at 4, 5, 6 places over the course of the last 4 or 5 years. And so it's obviously a plague on the industry for many reasons. It really prohibits the ability for someone to get up and running and truly help patients get into treatment, which is hopefully why we're all doing what we do. But for the businesses they represent, you have to start all over again every 6, 9, 10 months that they turn over. You're starting over from scratch. So how do you navigate that? Now, how do you take a look at the book of business rep as either a value add to your organization? Is it a part of a tactic? Is it a strategy? Or is it something worth avoiding? And I appreciate talking with everyone today about that in more depth.
In general, why would a treatment center hire a, quote unquote, a book of business rep, someone with a huge network who's been doing it forever, that's going to have typically a high cost and a high dollar amount associated with someone with that? Why would a treatment center, typically make a call like that?
Well, essentially, when you talked about the three sides of it being boots on the ground, digital, and alumni, the digital aspect is only going to generate a certain amount of referrals or patients to your facility based on the people that are online looking for the help that they need. So you're automatically going to need boots on the ground for both business development purposes as well as like brand recognition or brand establishment. So based on wherever your facility is located and looking at the vertical market in your region, there could be a large population of hospitals, therapists, outpatient clinics, MAT clinics, primary care physicians, all of those places that we would, potentially see clients seeking our services that your digital marketing efforts are never going to reach. So first and foremost, you'll need business development reps to penetrate those vertical markets and make sure that people are aware of the facility that you offer and the services that are offered there. It's hard to interview and hire new business development reps when you essentially have no idea what you're going to get on your ROI. I think it's easier to just assume that somebody with a established book of business is going to generate immediate referrals, which typically most facilities need, and they would rather take the risk on that than the long, slow play of training somebody that could be, 3, 6, 9 months out before they see a return on their investment.
What kinds of systems and metrics and structures can I provide as a leader, as a manager, to really set that person up for success?
Yeah, I mean, first I would establish a region for that rep. I don't want to overwhelm them by giving them too large of a territory, obviously until they're a little more seasoned or understand the role. So I would establish like a local or small, probably 3-county region, and then I would put KPIs in place. So some of the key performance indicators that I have used in the past and still use today would just measure exactly how many face-to-face meetings, cold calls, tours, in-services, things like that you should be performing on a monthly basis. Because in my experience, if you do hit every one of these on a monthly basis, there really is no reason why we haven't seen the referrals or we haven't seen your phone ringing. Outside of that, I'm going to establish if for some reason you are hitting all of those marks, but we're still not seeing, the phone ring or the referrals coming in, I would probably implement 1 to 2 ride-alongs a week too, because it could be a tweak in the delivery. Is this a personality? Is this a cultural issue? Is there something else that we're missing? But tours, emails, if you're using software such as Dazos, all of that can be tracked, because I'm also going to put an expectation that you document all of your activity on a daily basis. It will come. I need to be patient. I need to understand that there's going to take, a period of whatever you set that to be, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months before all of your hard work will essentially pay off. But if you're hitting all of those key performance indicators on a weekly and monthly basis, I know that this is going to be worth it and that you're going to end up being a valuable asset for my team.
Yeah, if I could interject too a little bit, Sam.
Please.
So outside of some of the KPIs listed there, and of course you have to have Dazos logging activities. Like you can't evaluate if you don't have metrics logged, right? But
Correct.
I'm gonna get a little esoteric with that answer. So first, for those who are unfamiliar with the developmental diagnoses, there's 4 stages of a rep's development that you want to monitor. There's the unconscious incompetent, the conscious incompetent, conscious competent, and unconscious incompetent. So basically, you don't know what you know what you don't know, you know what you know, and you have forgotten more than other people know, right? And so I once had a rep who wanted to become a field trainer really bad. So I asked this rep, I said, hey, how would you train me if I was to go in the field tomorrow? And she, bless her heart, was like, I don't know. Well, that's because at that stage of my career, I was the unconscious incompetent. I could navigate a field in a way that, I just do. It's after 2 decades, God, I'm old, in the field, I know exactly what I'm doing, right? So I think that's the thing when we're talking about the book of business reps is you have to analyze them where they are on that spectrum to provide the appropriate coaching. Because if I was to go back to the field work tomorrow and someone wanted to hold my feet to the fire for something I would consider, sales 101 work when I'm at sales 450, like that's where I think the coaching and the rep need to match. Is if organizations who intend to hire book of business reps that aren't just claiming their fame on relationships, but are claiming their fame on the behaviors that got to those relationships, because that's truly who we want, is an experienced person with good relationships that can produce quickly. If you're hiring a book of business rep, then you're going to coach them not as a unconscious incompetent. You're going to coach them as if they are at that level. And I think that's where a lot of the challenges of organizations come in place, is that hiring a senior rep who does have the goods when it comes to the behaviors in the field and knows how to get the job done and produce, the coaching for that person is completely different than the person who was a tech 6 months ago. And
as we kind of, we've kind of talked about like why people would make one decision or the other and what are the pros and cons of one versus the other. Steve, I'd really love to hear your take about what it looks like to actually evaluate and hire different team members in kind of that boots on the ground role, and what kind of strategies you have for success.
yeah, absolutely. So I think a great place to start is actually a current client of ours. We have the privilege of starting almost from scratch on building out their outreach team, and we're using a concept that is basically mission and vision driven revenue generation. So, our industry, we have evidence-based care, we have trauma-informed care, but we rarely use the mission and vision statements of our treatment centers in actually growing our teams culturally. And so that's actually going to help decide the factors for who we're hiring culturally through that. So with that said, per the article, I'll expand on a couple of the topics there. We want to start with interviewing properly to make sure that that book of business rep is either the right one for you or not. So what I want to encourage first and foremost is interview for behaviors, not outcomes. Someone comes to your desk with a resume, you can see it. It says what it says. Fine. How did they get there? Did they inherit a great territory from someone else that did all the legwork and they just maintained their relationships and went golfing and had cigars and they did great? That could happen. Or did they have a brand new territory group from scratch and know how to go through the whole process and flow? Which one best mirrors your situation? Do you need the golf and cigar, or do you need the start from scratch? That's truly dependent on the organization, right? And then finally, do the math. I see a couple of people on here know me. I'm a math nerd. So the math for generating revenue is pretty darn simple in most cases. Per HubSpot, for healthcare companies, 9 to 14% of gross revenue needs to be spent on generating said gross revenue. Pretty simple, right? So if you have a rep that you're paying $100,000 for, plus their travel, their entertainment, their insurance, their taxes, you're truly spending probably, we'll say for sake of easy math, $150,000 a year on that person. 9 to 14% would mean you need to generate $1 million off that person their first 12 months in existence with your organization to see a return on investment. Now, if your organization is long enough and you're able to play the long game, maybe you say that's their second year target. I will tolerate a ramp up first year. If it's 500,000, 700,000, I'm cool with that. I'll handle that because I have some rep over here who's doing 6 million. So I can handle this person growing, but that second year, they better hit it, right? So you need to do the math on what's tolerable for your organization. And it could very well be they got to do 2 the next month or I don't eat. But to a degree, hiring reps can be like getting scratch off tickets to a lottery, right? You get a whole bunch of $3 scratch offs versus one, 20. I don't know. I might be risk tolerant in that way. So I get a bunch of $1 ones and I'll sit down and like scratch off all 50 of them and win like 40 back. But you can get 2 reps at $60,000 plus variable comp based on performance versus a $120,000 rep. If one of those reps doesn't make it, you've hedged your bet that the other one will, right? And if you're able to do a bell curve of 5 reps, 2 definitely won't. 1 will be mediocre and 2 will be exceptional. And then you're stuck with 3 reps who are now above the bar of what you want to. And to your point, you're not starting over from scratch, you're starting from a good place and you're able to backfill 2 people. So I think that's, again, doing the math on how you proceed with that. I generally like doing the variable comp plus junior rep. Experienced reps bring with them books of business, relationships, good habits, but they also bring with them bad habits. It's inevitable. If you have any tenure in your career, you're going to have a bad habit or 2 that sticks with you. I do. But if you can hedge your bet on a junior rep who doesn't have those bad habits and you build them in your culture and you train them properly, before you know it, you're going to have a ton of people who are absolute rock stars and are the best forward-facing version of your treatment center you can have.
As we kind of wrap up, the last 5 or 10 minutes of this, Steve, if you have any kind of thoughts on that or just closing thoughts in general, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I'd love to give comments to Lindsay's comment here, and would be happy to answer anything else. But for Lindsay, you said here at the end that great talent thrives under strong leadership and can shine. I would say that talent is probably the cruelest mistress in the professional world because it follows whoever pays attention to it. So if you aren't a leader paying attention to your talent, thriving and cultivating your talent, you're not a leader. And so I think that's what matters when you're developing a company and organization. If you have a leadership team that are A-player leaders, perhaps not the A's player in every aspect of their management or their job, but as leaders in development of humans, people to cultivate their true strengths, at worst, you have B players in your organization. If you have a B player leadership team, or God forbid C, the highest you're ever going to get is C or D. So John Maxwell eloquently puts it in The Law of the Lid. I highly recommend John Maxwell's book, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, if everyone hasn't read it. But yeah, you're 100% true that you have to cultivate that leader, that talent to grow, and no one is fully done cultivating their own talent.
Yeah, I would also like to touch on what Lindsay commented about the fear as a startup of somebody, offering one of her new BD reps more money. That's just the reality of this industry. It's going to happen. But, personally, I will tell reps, I encourage you to take the interview, take the call, hear what they have to say. If you believe that they can offer you a more supportive environment, better patient care, better services, just an overall better place to work, by all means, please share with me what they're doing that we're not. Outside of the dollar amount, you won't find people that'll take as good of care of you as like myself or the team that I work with, or be more supportive. So unfortunately, there's nothing you can ever do to prevent that, and you will quickly wean out the people that are genuinely here for the right reasons, and then the ones that it's just a money grab for them. So if that entices them personally, you probably weren't appropriate for my team anyway. So, the best of luck to you. And I'll have to take the little bit of a loss in the new training of a rep, but it all evens out in the end.
For the most part, if someone is leaving, it's not anything that was typically done in that moment. It's more a reflection of, what their career was like, and, what kind of opportunities they had. And so turnover happens. And I think showing grace and just respect through that is so valuable for a culture and for leaders. Because like you said, Steve, if you have C leadership, then you're never going to have more than C level talent, and so to really just be an example, not just in your words, but your actions, is just another reason I've got just so much respect for you and everyone on this call.